there's a lot of certificate requirements in security. Every employer wants this certificate, the next employer wants that certificate. You also thinking this certificate is new, I need to get it. So there's so many certifications that are out there with good knowledge, but this comes with its own other challenge. They're very expensive. Yeah? It's very expensive to actually be able to get all this knowledge out there. And even with all the certificates you might get, again, it's a very changing field. You will never know everything. So it takes some sacrifice to be able to, put every other thing aside and, get your knowledge into the certifications. And again, like mentioned earlier, continuous learning was a challenge for me. After all the years in school, I did not want at any one point to continue reading. But with the field of security, it requires that you're continuously learning and equipping yourself with new knowledge. And that was a challenge, and everybody will face that challenge. We have to continuously learn, and with the sacrifices I did speak about earlier that come with it. The field of security also has a people problem. And why I put people as a problem is that as you get into security, it is not easy in any organization you will work in, or even as a startup into consultancy, to cultivate a security culture around the people that you're working with. Security always is looked at as one of those very costly ventures that people don't want to get into. So even with all your knowledge, you still have to deal with people, in that people do not believe in security until there's an incident that comes in play. And again, you also find that people probably just don't believe in the skills that you have on the ground. So, to handle this, you must come up with soft skills. You have to be able to do management of people, in managing your stakeholders, know who they are and manage them. And for me, what the most important challenge has been in the field of security has been the fatigue. Everything I've talked about rotates around the same thing. Security is an extremely rapidly changing field. What is relevant today is not relevant tomorrow. You will never be sure about anything you're doing because, the threat today that probably wasn't there yesterday, and, probably tomorrow the fix that will bring will not be working. There's so many moving parts around security. Change is really the only constant within security. So there's a lot of fatigue that comes with that. It is so versatile and uncertain that you will get a lot of fatigue. So the key area here is to always, for me, that's where, at the beginning, when I mentioned that I love to work out, really what I meant is self-care became a very big part of my career, because you have to have the right state of mind to be able to perform and achieve in the field of security, in my opinion. Briefly, that's where my career has been, challenges that I have faced. And I would love, because of the audience that I have here, I would love to mostly take an interactive direction to this, where you can ask me any question about the career, about anything you need to know within the field of security and banking that there is. Over to you, Linda.
Thank you very much, Allan. Quite informative, even for me who's in the space. So at this point, I just want us to, if anyone has a question, you could just raise your hand, so that at least we have order, and then we keep moving. Yeah. Questions, comments? Yes, Debbie.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Linda, for the opportunity. Thank you also, Mr. Allan, for what you've shared. I joined in a bit late, but I was able to get some principles. So mine is a question. I am venturing into the career of cybersecurity. I finished my degree in computer science, but like you said, I need a lot of certifications. I need experience. I need a lot of these things. How do I choose the right certification to go for at the very start? I'm not very certain if I'll be in banking. I'm not very certain if I'll be in communication. Like at the very start, how do I choose the right certification to go for? Because they're expensive and I wouldn't want to put my money into something that is not going to help me. So how do I make that decision? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. So, Debbie, for that question. You are right. They're so expensive, and unfortunately, I can't sit here and tell you one direction to take and tell you if you do this and if you do this, you will get here. That's not something I'm able to do, but I can give you some of the basic certifications that are sure to give you some, some standard security skills, and also that will be recognized in any kind of industry you will be going into, whether it's banking, telco, whether it's private. There are a few. I don't know if you've heard of CompTIA security. It's really one of the most basic security foundational courses that you can do. It looks at a lot of things from cryptography to risk management, network security, and it gives an overall view of that. And that's a very good course to begin with. Another one I always tell people to start with at the beginning is not the most technical, but it gives you a very good overview of security as a whole. That is Certified Information Security Manager, which most people know as CISM. It's a very good one for professionals because it teaches you mostly the management of security, designing security structures, overseeing an enterprise and information security program. And those are things that are definitely going to be useful in any field you do go to. There are others, of course, that get very technical. And like you said, on the expensive side of things, if you look at Certified Ethical Hacker, which is one most people like actually to start with because it's so engaging. So the CEH is another one I would definitely recommend. And based on how the industry is moving, I always recommend CCSP, which is Certified Cloud Security Professional. Those are some of the ones you can look into, but I would advise the first two as a starting point for you joining security. But most importantly, Debbie, and allow me to use this opportunity to speak about it, most importantly, as you're joining the field of security, over time, what I've learned about it is it's a mindset. Security is more of a mindset than it is a technical skill. Yeah, that could sound very contradictory, but ideally, any technical person will probably be able to do a lot of things. But to be able to secure the technology that everybody is very well versed with, you need to change your mindset. What do I mean by a security mindset? I mean, in such a changing environment, you need to more or less focus on staying informed. That could not only be certifications, but always pushing yourself to stay informed, looking at new threats, things like that on different blogs. The other is always trying to think like a hacker. Every time you go into something, a situation, and this definitely spills over into your private life, you have to always ask yourself in any situation, what could go wrong? Yeah, so that's part of the security mindset. You have to be able in your daily life to cultivate analytical skills, because that is ideally what most of you are going to do with security, and adopting a risk management approach to everything within the field. I don't know if that answers you, Debbie.
Yes, it does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for that insight, Allan. Anyone else with a question, comment? Yes. Is it Millie?
Hi. My name is Sharon. I know my tag says different. It's because I've joined with a different email today. I have a series of questions. My first one is, if you have been in a panel where you were an interviewer for a position at your company now or former company, what are some of the things that you have looked for from candidates? And also, I can see a guitar behind you. So is music part of your self-care routine, or is that just a hobby?
Thank you for that. I'll start with the first question. I have been a part of a couple of panels interviewing employees, possible prospects. And personally, I am, like I said, I'm very passionate about, when it comes to mindset, and it's a very difficult skill to assess. But when I'm usually putting out questions myself, I don't want to ask very technical questions. I want to ask very general questions and just to see your thought process in how you go by a situation. And that's where I look for mindset. How are you handling a situation that's put across? And I know one might say that is something one might get from experience. True and false, because I feel like when you're cultivating the culture of security around you, you don't actually need to have the experience, but you just need to change your mindset and how you think of things. So for me personally, over and above the basic security knowledge, and I said basic because I'll always try to keep my questions basic on security, but look forward to the mindset, because you can learn anything. It's easy to learn skills, technical skills, but a mindset is harder to cultivate. So that's why I put it forward in that. On to your other question. This is just a hobby. I'm a very serious amateur. I say serious because I've been an amateur for many years. I really do try to play guitar, and I forget. I can forget for as long as a year, but I am still learning. Thank you. There was another hand up at some point. I don't know if somebody lowered it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. No, Omura. Enoch. Enoch, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So I want to tackle the elephant in the room. As cybersecurity analysts or SOC analysts, whatever, there's this trend that is actually advertised. Actually, let me go straight to the point. It attracts a lot of people because people tend to think that I don't have to really know about programming. How much should I go in depth in programming skills? And does it make me more versatile? Am I at is it a pro, or I can still survive in the cybersecurity industry without the rudimentary programming skills? Thank you.
That's indeed a very good question, Enoch. You did mention, just for clarity, you did mention you are a SOC analyst?
I was just saying, hypothetically, for example, if I'm a SOC analyst, will I need programming skills?
Okay. Ideally, what I've faced in the field is that with security, you must know almost every area of technology. Take a bank, for example. You have the applications, and in applications, what are you going to find there? You're going to be involved in development of applications, in assessing the security around the development. So what does that mean? You might need some level of coding knowledge and programming knowledge in order to be able to actually see gaps in application. So to answer your question, you might need some knowledge, but you don't have to be as good as the programmers themselves. And that again goes back to the point I keep saying. Personally, I've been in situations where you go into a room with programmers with an application they're trying to bring onto the table. You probably you've learned about that language, programming language, maybe a few weeks ago, but you will be able to sit in the room, look at the functionality, look at the code, and be able to pick a number of security gaps within the application that they may not see, and yet they have better programming knowledge than you have. The other advantage around it when you get into security is that there's been a lot of tools that have been made and continuously updated and changed to be able to automate some tasks, especially those tasks around code reviewing. So the knowledge you need to know about the threats, that's why you keep updating yourself with the knowledge on threats. But in terms of knowing the actual coding and programming, you don't have to know it to the level of the people developing the applications.
Thank you. Thank you for
Enoch,
that.
can I get a thumbs up, Enoch? Sometimes silence can mean I've confused you.
I can't see the thumbs up, but yeah, thumbs up from this virtual side. Thanks. You answered my question.
All right.
Any more takers? Yes, Nasirian. Hope.
Hello. Thanks, Alan, for quite the advice. So my question is on the banking industry, specifically. So for young graduates who've just, fresh graduates who've just finished off and maybe don't have a vast experience, what would, I wouldn't say tricks into getting into the banking industry, but what advice would you give them when they're looking for jobs or applying for jobs advertised in the banking industry?
Thank you. Particularly, you're speaking about the banking industry. One of the things I actually advise people is get one or two courses, get one or two certifications. The first two I did mention, which was CompTIA and CESM, will go a long way into showing how much interest you have in security. There is some bias when people are hiring for most of these banks. Like I did say, there's a lot of expectation around, having experience. But when you get one or two courses and be willing to take up to, there's all these entry-level jobs that are actually available. Most times when we're looking for particularly security analysts to do vulnerability assessments or SOC analysts, we normally in the banking industry, we are going to look for newer, fresh graduates who can be able to then grow within the field and become maybe eventually penetration testers or compliance and risk officers and architects. So key thing is, one, get one or two courses under your belt. Look for as many internships as you possibly can, because sometimes those actually do help within the banking industry. Get any internships, whether it's in the banking industry or not. Look out for any other place. It could be in a startup, but get yourself some bit of experience that can put you at an advantage within the banking industry. But really what it entails is prepare yourself, get one or two certifications, put knowledge at the table at your disposal. Go and read a lot about what's happening, because the more you impress in an interview, like I said, the more knowledge you can show around your security mindset, the better your chances of getting into the industry. And again, like I said, there are entry-level jobs in terms of analysts, and jobs are continuing to change as the environment continues to grow. You note how technology is changing. There's AI now. So there's so many jobs coming up in the banking industry as we grow. So there is a lot of opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more takers? I think as people are just thinking through, for me, I just want to probably draw our attention to some of the things that have actually stood out for me as Alan has spoken to us this evening. I think Alan has really emphasized for us the need of relearning. He's alluded that a lot to that during the time he's been talking to us, and I think I just want to echo that a lot, just to have an open mind. As he said, he was experienced in this field, but he's just been able to open up his mind to really give himself opportunities to learn. I've also heard a lot about taking risks. And this has definitely, as in we can see, it has definitely paid off in his career. So just being open to take risks, grab opportunities to learn, grab opportunities to grow, that will definitely help us to propel ourselves forward. I've also heard about discipline, as he mentioned, he is very disciplined. And for me, this is just about applying yourself in what you're doing. Yeah, it's good enough that you already have the skill in this unique space, but also when you get the opportunity to actually be able to apply yourself. I've also heard you, Alan, talking a lot about other skill sets, soft skills, talking about leadership, talking about managing people. What also caught my attention is about stakeholder management. That was interesting to hear because, as you've mentioned, security is a very interesting space. So how the different stakeholders that you have in your organization, how are you able to rally those people behind you, even as you want them to be able, so that you can be able to achieve the objectives that you have. So for me, those are what has stood out. And then of course the aspect of self-care. I mean, no work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So yeah, and having that space to decompress, take care of yourself so that you can be able to show up better for yourself at the workplace. Yeah, so for me, those are basically what I've picked out from this session. Yeah. Any more takers? Yes, Debbie.
Thank you once again. This is more of a, I don't know, like a very general question that I've just thought about as Linda was speaking. So generally in the tech industry, they talk about, say, programming. It's very demanding as a profession. It's very demanding of your time. You know, the patience to sit down and solve a bug and then come back. It runs the whole night, something like that. So comparing that to a cyber security job, I understand it has, of course, you have to keep learning. You have to be updated with the threats and all that. But is it so demanding? Does it steal away your time to do, do life generally? How is it? How has the experience been for you? And what should we know? What should we know as we come? What should we be on the lookout for? Yeah, just prepare us in that direction. Thank you.
Right, maybe, okay, that's a very good one. Just maybe background, what I could maybe not have mentioned is I loved programming when I was starting out. When I was in Easy Money, I was we also used to develop the programs. I used to love programming. The difference I see that programming was fun. It was challenging, but it was fun to do. You're seeing things work and you're happy that they're working eventually. Where I think security is extremely challenging is really, I would say it in one word, fear. Security is one of those fields that instills a lot of fear in you because you are charged in protecting technology. Ideally, that's the best way to put it. So when you're always asking yourself what can go wrong, and if your head can't get an answer to that, you're just completely afraid that you probably missed something. And for me, I've found that extremely more challenging than any other thing because every time something wrong isn't happening, I'm thinking, am I doing it right? Am I missing something? And then you have to beat your head around the whole thing again and try to see, I could be missing this. And when you analyze something and move on from it and you be like, maybe I'm wrong on that part, so I've found that that's probably what makes security an extremely demanding field. When you immerse yourself in it, one thing I always tell people in what I've learned is it is okay to be wrong as you grow in the field. You're going to be wrong many times. You're going to break many things. You're probably going to annoy many people. And all of that put together is why I spoke about the thing of fatigue. Yeah. So I feel like security is much more demanding for me than programming itself.
Okay. Charles, and then Edwin.
Hello, good evening. So Alan, thank you for your session, for the insights on basically what goes on around cybersecurity. My question would be, as a cybersecurity specialist, maybe you could take us through on a normal day what normally happens in the banking industry as a security specialist.
Oh, Charles, thank you. So that's an interesting question. but I will try to be as brief as possible because a lot does go on within the banking industry. Like I mentioned earlier, security is it's more or less a discipline of its own. It has so many various parts, yeah. But to break them down in a bank, you're going to find that first thing you do, of course, that's in case you have not been there the whole night. It happens. First thing you do is you're looking at your systems that you have in place to give you alerting, the things that are getting logs from the different systems that you have. You, as a security analyst, you have to look at these logs, analyze them for any anomalies, be able to then push those that you see important, push them and do more investigation, and eventually into incident management if they need be. Then you have to look at what is going on within the actual bank. Are there any new systems being worked on? Because you have to be a part of every single system. You're doing security assessments for those systems and make sure they are ready before they go live. That's also another section. The other area is we're providing advisory. Again, it could be projects, it could be any business venture they're going into, but ideally security doesn't just stop on cyber. You are also looking at risk in general, yeah? So you are providing risk advisory to the bank, different banking sectors, business units. That's pretty much in summary, but to break it down, you're really doing assessments for security vulnerabilities in different environments, network systems, infrastructure, and applications. Then you're also doing monitoring, which I spoke about when you're looking at alerts and all that goes around. And at times you're going to be remediating whatever you found. And last but not least, you're doing incident management within the bank and also advisory, which means you're advising the bank on the bank staff on what to do best, improving their security culture, how an incident happened and how to prevent it from happening again. That's really just to break it down, but you would need a longer session for me to walk you through that.
Okay, thanks. I think the next person was Jonah. I've acknowledged your hand. We had Edwin before. Edwin could go, and then Jonah.
I hope you can hear me.
Loud and clear.
My question is about the risks that you've talked about. We hear, let's say, instances where the Facebook of a university gets hacked, and then the IT in charge, or the guy in charge of the profile gets fired. Then we hear about cases where in banks, maybe attendees or the IT department failed to update various security softwares, and which ended up in a hack or compromise of the systems, and they get jailed for 20 years. So are there policies set in place in the environment or in your work system, whereby it protects you as an employee in the cybersecurity field from such an instance, whereby you might get persecuted or you will be jailed?
Thank you very much, Adrian, for that. That's actually a very important thing, and one of the reasons why I say fear. Within the security field, you're never too sure, and you're always afraid of what could go wrong and how it will impact you as a person. What I can say to your question is, the banks in particular do have policies in place in the way things are supposed to be done, and how it's supposed to be done, who is supposed to do this and that. So for as long as everything stated in the policy has been done correctly, you are safe from situations of that nature. The problem does come in when an incident happens and fraud happens. A bank loses money, something happens, some system goes down, the DDoS here, ransomware, and in the investigation, it is found that maybe something within the policy was not done right, something in the procedures was missed. That's when then your job comes into question. And why didn't you do what is meant to be done? That's the only time your job comes at risk. Otherwise, if you do what is right, even when something goes wrong, for as long as you did what was supposed to be done. Yes, Adrian? Is someone speaking? Like I was saying, for as long as you follow procedure and everything that's in policy, your job is safe. Like I mentioned, the way this field is, you will never know everything. So it is okay to make mistakes for as long as what was meant to be done is done correctly. Edwin, I don't know if that gives you comfort.
It does.
Fear is a big part of the field, but challenges are good in order to grow within security. Where there's no challenge, your job might actually come into question.
Okay, thank you.
Jonah?
Yes, please. Good evening. Thank you, Alan, for the presentation. Good to hear you have worked in a bank, which I've also done previously, but currently I'm not. Good. In these managerial positions in bank, advertisement for the ACT manager in maybe a circle or in a bank, they usually ask for 2 security certifications, which is the CISA and the CISM, which are quite expensive in the market. Now, my question is, of course, the CISA and the CISM, I believe they are not maybe so technical security concepts, but maybe really and managerial. So my question is, why are the managerial positions in banks and circles attract candidates, or the banks and the circles are the financial institutions are so demanding to get a person with a 2, with a CISA or a CISM, and they tend to despise the rest of the security certifications in the market? Thank you. That's my question.
Thank you very much for that question. You see, why, maybe the first answer I should give you is why CISM and CISA? When I spoke about security mindset, that you need to have a security mindset, the thing about CISM and CISA is that they are building you to understand on a more high level governance, risk, and policy management of security. So they're building, they're looking to build you a bigger picture on managing the security field in the banking industry or whichever environment that is. That is why banks in particular lean towards having people with these particular certifications, because they imagine that, you know, that is where you've gotten most of the knowledge around managing a bigger picture in security. Whereas there are courses you're going to do that are very focused on one area. So you're going to do a course that is focused on network security and it's hands-on, one that is focused on penetration testing, one that is basically making you the very best of a SOC analyst. However, when you come to CISM and CISA, you're looking at the bigger picture, all these things put together on a non-technical level. How does a security program in a bank work? So when it comes to those management positions, they're looking for leadership as opposed to technical skill. That is why they tend towards that direction. However, again, like I say, sometimes there are things you may not learn, you might get from these certifications that, you know, you can actually get without them. And it all comes down to how you present yourself in terms of the knowledge you've gotten, how you're able to present it all forward. Just to put it in perspective, I personally don't have CISA, for example. I won't lie to you about that. I don't have CISA. I plan on getting it, but I don't have CISA. Yeah, but I was able to put myself in a position to get the job that I have now because of just trying to grow and, you know, challenging myself to pick information even without that certification.
Okay, thank you.
Then I think our last question for the evening, Marvin.
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Linda. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Alan, I have a question for you. Since most of us here are just starting out, most of us are entry level, could you paint for us a picture of how you began, like a day-to-day, like a day in your life compared to where you are now? And if you were to start all over again, how would you do it differently with the new technologies that are are available to you at your disposal today?
Thank you for that question, actually. How do I best put this? When I started out, and I'm going to look at when I started out in the field of security and not in my first job. When I got into security, I was very scared because I got to see that I probably didn't know much. And what I used to do on a day-to-day basis is, like I mentioned, I had very good leaders. And I used to sit down with them any moment they have and learn from them. I used to, put myself in the shoes of all the other different areas of the IT team within the bank. Like I said, you have to know a lot. So I would interact a lot with the teams from the networks, the team from the infrastructure, the teams managing the data center, the programmers. I would want to know a lot about what they do in order to know where I can add value in terms of how can I then protect what they're doing? How can I come in to add value into what they're doing? So a lot of my time starting up was into learning every single day, learning from mistakes, frustrations. So I used to do a lot of that. And one of the things I mentioned earlier, which I do regret not having done at the very start when I left university, is I should have been more open to learning. I should have never assumed that I knew everything. Because if I had started from when I left university and picked out a course, a certificate, and did that certificate, and then find different people within the field, professionals, and learn from them from the very beginning, even before I started working, I wish that's something I would have done earlier, to prepare me for the time when I did start going into the job and the role of security. Lately, my day is a bit different from how it used to be then, because then I was a security officer, and now as a manager of LAM and application security, the role has changed a lot because as you get into the leadership space in cyber, now you're trying to hone the same skills into a team of people to be able to execute on a bigger scale. So that's how it has changed, into seeing that the people that I work with have everything they need in terms of skills, certifications, knowledge to be able to perform in that role. Yeah, that's really how it has changed. But from the very beginning, I wish I had known better around learning as early as possible.
Our last question for the evening, Mark.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. So my question is about the certifications. There are free certifications from Cisco, such as cloud security and endpoint security. My question is, do they add any value in terms of employment to a person who is applying for a role? And my second question is that there being many programming languages required, which ones are key for somebody starting out?
Thank you. I will actually start with your second question. Unfortunately, I am not in the best position to tell you what the best programming languages are, because even I am not I'm not a good programmer at all. I simply just use my security mindset to try and secure whatever the programs are that have been built by the programmers. On to the first question. The free certification is actually good for you because, like I said, this is how you get a lot of knowledge. Just keep reading. Whatever it is, you see it, add it. The other thing is why it gives you an advantage, even when you don't have the paid certifications, having more certifications under your belt shows someone that is really interested and they really love what they're going into. So it's a very big advantage for any employer out there when you have as many certifications as you can possibly have.
Okay, thank you.
I think we are done this evening. I think for now, I just request Allan to give us a parting shot for this evening, and we can call it a night. And yeah.
All right. First and foremost, thank you everyone that has made time in the evening on a Thursday to come here and listen to me go on about my English. I do appreciate that. But most importantly, as you go away today, one thing I want you to go with is the security jobs are many. Contrary to what you might hear, what you might know, there's a lot of security jobs. Every single technology change in the world happening now needs security. So it's an advantage for you and for anybody who wants to join this. So go with that. There is a lot of security jobs. So keep adding a lot of knowledge to your under your belt to prepare yourself for the moment as and when it comes. But most importantly, as you leave, self-care is the most important thing you'll ever do to yourself. So stay disciplined to that, build the best habits, and you'll be prepared for anything in the world.
Thank you, Allan. Once again, I thank you. I really appreciate your time and really giving us the insights that you've been able to do. We just thank you and we wish you all the best, even for those of us who have been able to learn from Allan. Just a challenge to us to actually practice what is actually thrown to us in terms of challenges. And we can clearly see from him that if we actually apply ourselves, if we have the discipline, if we actually open to learn, for me, that's my key takeout. If we are open to learn, then there's definitely an opportunity for us to grow. So without further ado, thank you very much, Allan. Thank you very much for all of us who are in this session. And I just want to wish you a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you and bye. Have a good
Bye.
evening.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you. Bye.